Welcome back. In our previous lecture, we gave a bird's eye view of logic. Logic allows us to reason about things in a clear and orderly way. But logic is not a neutral tool. We see this most clearly when it comes to business and marketing. Businesses invest a lot of time and money into marketing. Why? They do so because they can gain more consumers. These businesses are not dumb. They have to understand something about human beings in order to market successfully. A good business, then, uses logic for good. A not-so-good business does not use logic for good. But both understand the human person and how humans act and behave both individually and socially. And so, logic is not a neutral tool. It can be used for human flourishing or for manipulation. The question for us, then, is not only whether we are reasoning rightly or wrongly, but also whether we are using reason for the sake of making humanity better or worse. Now, I bring this up because there is a personal dimension in all of this. We cannot think about humanity without thinking about those who make up humanity, you, me, and all of us together in relation. Making humanity better begins with each and every one of us as individuals. We have to make sure we, as individuals, are thinking and living rightly, that we are pursuing what is good and avoiding what is wrong. But in order to do this, we have to know what we mean by right and wrong, what we mean by good and bad. The goal of these lectures, then, is not merely to share information. Impersonal things like Google or AI could do that. Rather, the goal is self-transformation. Keeping our goal in mind, then, we will look at what ethics is and the different branches of it. When we consider ethics, we consider questions about what the good life is, what is better and worse, and whether there is any objective right or wrong that we can account for. To put it in the form of a definition, we can say that ethics is rational reflection on human conduct with the aim of directing that conduct in appropriate ways. And I'll say that again because that's important. Ethics is rational reflection on human conduct with the aim of directing that conduct in appropriate ways. Now, there are many components to this definition, so it is worth breaking down each part in order to better understand what we mean by ethics. First, ethics concerns itself with rational reflection. It is a kind of stepping back from ethical problems. It is not a kind of preaching about ethics, but rather it's a kind of reasoning about it. We see this most clearly in the person of Socrates. In ancient Athens, Socrates asked the Athenians to take a step back from their daily lives and ethical commitments in order to consider how their ethical views are justified. For example, we all want justice. When we see injustices, we are rightly appalled. But what is justice, and how is it different from injustice? Is justice determined by a community of people, a religion, human reason? Is there even one justice, or are there many justices? Notice that in asking these questions, we are taking a step back from daily practical life in order to philosophize. We are no longer asking questions concerned with mere human life, but rather we are asking questions concerned with the good life. For after all, what good is life if it is not the good life? Now, ethics is also concerned with human conduct. We are not interested in computer ethics or animal ethics in the sense of asking whether computers or animals can be moral. That said, we are concerned with the right use or misuse of computers, animals, and the like. Now, the third key element in ethics is that it is practical. It is true that we reason about ethical foundations and situations in ethics. But just arguing about these things is not ethics. Ethics is something lived out. Because it is lived out, it again requires something personal of us. In fact, everyone already lives out an ethical code, whether we know it or not. Since we are human beings, animals capable of rationalizing, we should be conscious of the ethical code we live out in order to know whether or not we are living the way we should, whether we are living the good life. So the question in ethics is not merely what makes a good life, but rather, am I living that good life right now? Having now looked at what ethics is, along with the consequences of its definition, we will take a look at some of the different branches of ethics in order to have a roadmap of its intricate parts. Now, there are 3 branches of ethics that will concern us. There are more branches, but these 3 are what we will focus on for our purpose. They are descriptive ethics, normative ethics, and meta-ethics. Descriptive ethics considers ethics historically and culturally. It asks, what are the ethical views of a given population at a given time? For example, if we want to know the ethical views the ancient Greeks held concerning, say, courage, we would be doing descriptive ethics. If we wanted to survey the ethical views that Americans hold in our own day and age, that is also descriptive ethics. So descriptive ethics considers ethical views historically and culturally. It does not assess whether the ethical views held by a culture are right or wrong. Rather, it merely describes the ethical views, and is hence called descriptive ethics. Then there is what we call normative ethics. Normative ethics seeks to find a set of concrete, individual moral norms that can guide our lives. Even though it is still theoretical, it gives us practical advice. There are 3 popular kinds of normative views: the aretaic, deontological, and consequential. Aretaic normative ethics concerns itself with the pursuit of virtue and the avoidance of vice. Virtue is simply a good habit, while vice is a bad habit. So in this view, to be a good person means to have good habits and avoid bad ones. But how do we get good habits and avoid bad habits? We attain good habits by doing good actions, and we avoid bad habits by avoiding bad actions. Since the aretaic view concerns itself with habits, and habits form our character, the aretaic view is really concerned with human character. Now, this view may seem commonsensical, but notice the way we speak about morality in our own day. When we speak of morality, we tend to describe different values. Values are things we will or desire. For example, I value honesty and justice. But values are separate from character. It is at least possible to value honesty and justice without being an honest and just person. So values are separate from character. A person could have good values but have a bad character. But no person could have good habits and have a bad character. Habits, in other words, form our character, whereas values do not. Now, of course, this does not mean, or this is not to say, that the aretaic view is true. It could be that ethics concerns itself with values and not virtue. But the difference here is worth noting. There is also the deontological view. Deontological ethics concerns itself with rules and obligations. For example, treat others the way you want to be treated seems to be an ethical rule. One can form a whole ethical system through deontological ethics. For example, let's say I wonder whether or not I should steal bread because my family is hungry and I can't afford groceries for them. Is it right for me to steal it? Well, working off of the rule, treat others the way you want to be treated, what would make the most sense? How would I like to be treated if I were a store owner and someone else was going to steal bread? If I knew their situation, I would probably let them, depending on how many times they had taken bread before, and whether they were actively trying to work, or whether they were even in a position to work in the first place. But regardless, I would probably let them, though I would definitely want to know that they were taking the bread so that I was at least aware of what was happening in my store. So since I would want someone in that situation to at least ask me for the bread, the right move for me would be to at least ask the grocery clerk or store owner if I could take the bread. If they say yes, great. But if they say no, then I would have to go to a different grocery store until someone allowed it. So that is deontological ethics in a nutshell. You begin with a rule or a set of rules, and you apply that rule or set of rules to your own concrete situation to see whether the action is right or wrong. Finally, there is what we call consequentialism. Consequentialism is concerned with the consequences of the action. If the action brings about a good end, then the action is good. If the action brings about a bad end, then the action is bad. For example, what would the consequence be for stealing food from a grocery store in order to feed my hungry family? Well, my hungry family members could eat, and that's good. But the store would lose money. Now, can the store afford to lose, say, $3? Probably. They most likely would not even notice the impact. Of course, by law, it is illegal to steal. So again, I should at least ask the grocery clerk for permission so that I could avoid getting into trouble with the law. Doing this promotes the greatest good for the greatest number of people, in this case, my family, while minimizing any harm. In this case, the grocery store could afford the financial loss of $3. Finally, there is meta-ethics. Meta-ethics is the most abstract and reflective branch of ethics. It asks the most foundational questions concerning ethics. For example, are ethical views either true or false? Or is there a difference between something being true or false and something being right or wrong? Or again, is moral thought and talk relativistic? For example, is justice something different for each person rather than something that is actually objective and true for everyone? Or again, does moral reasoning aim at truth? Or is morality grounded in emotion, so that when we are dealing with morals, we are really expressing our emotions rationally through ethics? Now, when it comes to meta-ethics, there are two major camps: objectivism and subjectivism. Those who hold to a form of objectivism claim that there really is such a thing as moral truth. People who view morality as objective might disagree about why moral truths are objective. For example, some might say that science proves morality, or that morality is true for everyone because a God reveals the right way of life to us. But even though those who hold morality to be objective disagree about why morality is objective, they at least agree that morality is objective. Now, subjectivists, on the other hand, hold that morality, and really all morals, are ultimately not true or false for everyone. In this view, morals are either founded upon a society, so that something is right or wrong based on the society, or morality is really an expression of the way we live. Morals, in this view, have nothing to do with what is right or wrong in an objective sense, but only with what is right or wrong for me personally, or for you personally. And so in short, meta-ethics is the most abstract branch of ethics. It seeks the foundation for ethics through inquiry and questioning. Now in this course, we will survey the most common meta-ethical and normative ethical views. The goal is not merely to learn about these different ethical views. For again, even a wicked person could know all the different ethical views and still live wrongly. Rather, our goal in this course is to grow in self-awareness. The task in philosophy is really to take a step back from daily life and really think about why we are living the way we are. Success in a philosophy class, then, is not merely getting a good grade. Success means becoming the person you were meant to be and fulfilling your potential as a human person. And if we can do that collectively, we can organically grow into a better, flourishing humanity. I hope this was helpful. Thank you.